Good afternoon once again. This is the Love 2, round 2. Aspects of love. Today I want to tell you a story that affected me greatly about at least 25 years ago. Quite an amazing story. And although I knew the story, I couldn't find the source. But eventually I tracked down the book where it came from. The book itself was called Return from Tomorrow and written by George Ritchie. Here's the book here. I found it in Amazon about 18 months ago. This is the book here. It's not a big book. This George Ritchie, he died of pneumonia. He was actually dead for 9 minutes, and he talks about what actually happened in that 9 minutes, which is quite amazing, and how he interpreted that 9 minutes. But the part that I'm interested in was when he, at the end of the Second World War, he was working as a medical and surgical technician in the American Army, and he was sent to a place called Wuppertal in Germany, where they had a concentration camp. Not a big one, not like Auschwitz, but it was a concentration camp nonetheless. And their job was to help the surviving inmates get them well, find out where they came from, and repatriate them to their countries, France, Holland, Poland, wherever they came from. He said what was sad was the fact that some of them, even though they had survived the war and liberation had come, they were just too ill and they died. He said this was sad. And he said they were all in various states of emaciation, pot bellies, rib cages, sunken cheeks, bulging eyes, hair, no hair, hair falling out, hair grey, terrible. But there was one guy that stood out from them, and because this chap, this guy, he was full of energy. He looked fit. His skin was glowing. His hair was dark, eyes bright. So George thought, oh, he must have arrived in a few weeks or a month before the end of the war to be in such a fit state. But going through the papers, he discovered that he'd actually arrived in 1939, at the beginning of the war, and he'd been there for virtually 6 years. He'd been there for the entire length of the war. But he'd survived, and one of the reasons he survived was he spoke 5 or 6 languages, and the Germans used him as an interpreter. And so he was there, and he saw all the horrors of this, what went on in this concentration camp, which is pretty horrific for that period. So George fronted him one day and said, and this guy told him his story. The guy's name, we don't know, because it was, as George said in the book, it was a long, unpronounceable name, Polish name. And because the guy had this big handlebar moustache, they called him a Wild Bill Hickok, Wild Bill Cody, a Wild West hero in America. So Wild Bill was his nickname. So Wild Bill told his story, and it seemed that he was a lawyer in Warsaw in Poland, and he came home from his office, and the Germans were systematically going from block to block, street to street, in that area, the Jewish area, in the ghetto, I presume, and literally killing everybody. He arrived, and in his apartment, his wife, his 2 daughters and 3 sons, all young children, and his wife were lined up with the others to be literally machine gunned to death. He went down on his knees and in German pleaded to die with his family and wife. They said, no, you speak German, we need you. And they put him in a labour group. And he ended up here in this concentration camp. He said, I won't read it, I can remember. He said, he had a decision to make. As a lawyer, he'd seen what hate does to people. He could see what hate was doing to people right here and then. Hate, the hate for the Germans against the Jews, was destroying his family. He knew hate destroys the person, the hater, the person who hates. He knew that full well. So he made a decision at that instant. Even though they'd wiped out his family, all that he loved in life was destroyed in front of his eyes, he said, I made a decision. I would love every person that I came in contact, irrespective of who they were. In other words, a non-conditional and unconditional love, a non-judgmental love. He respected everybody, irrespective of what they were doing. And in that labour, that concentration camp, no matter who did what to whom, he never judged that person. I'm sure he didn't rush up and kiss them, but he didn't judge them. He just, who knows the circumstances behind that person and what they did. If I was put in that situation, I have no idea what I would do. I can't believe I would do that. I'm sure I would have gone for a gun or struggled or did what damage I could do to the Germans before they did that to my family. Revenge, I mean, when something like that happens, we think of revenge. I mean, the whole of Hollywood. Yeah, so much of the Hollywood industry depends on someone being murdered, someone being wiped out, and you avenge that family by killing the people that are responsible and bringing justice. This is Hollywood. And it's easy to do. It's much easier to hate than to love. I mean, you know, people come up, that person, I hate that person, or that person did this to me, and I'll never forgive that person until the day I die. Hate, 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 hate. Oh, it's so easy. But it's not so easy to come up and say, understand what happened and not be judgmental and still respect the person. And respect is akin to love. Just not judge and love. But the thing was, he never aged. He was the same. His skin glowed, his eyes glowed, he didn't get older. Believe me. It appears you could save a lot on cosmetics and cosmetic surgery if we could learn to love and love unconditionally. Very, very, very difficult to do. But that story greatly affected me, and I have also found it extremely difficult to actually put into practice. Signing off again for today. I'll see you shortly. Bye for now.